Hi everybody, my name is Gary Bravo. Welcome back to my channel. There is no intro, so don't ask. So how about this pandemic, right? Is that relatable enough? Is that a relatable enough start for you people? A little over a year ago now, in Seattle where I live, was the start of the Great Lockdown. Everyone was supposed to stay inside their homes. We were all ordering our groceries and letting them grow stale on the porch because we didn't want to be infected. I won't say with what. You all know with what. I shouldn't have to say what we didn't want to be infected with. Everyone kept a close eye on the local news coverage to see if there was going to be any new big scientific outbreaks that would help us get through this, as a team. And no, obviously not. What actually happened was the selfish people in our society, they kept going about their lives as normal, doing whatever they like for whatever reason. And the more restrained people in our society have been locked inside their homes for over 15 months now and haven't spoke to a single soul and are absolutely loving it. But the reality is most of us landed somewhere in between these two extremes. We stayed away from social gatherings to try and slow the spread, and we cried ourselves to sleep at night while we slowly packed on the COVID pounds. But here we are now. The US is delivering vaccinations at an alarmingly fast rate, and we're starting to be able to peek over the hill back into maybe, hopefully, potentially getting back to life that seems or resembles something that feels normal again. But wait, I'm a Zoomer. My normal life sucks. I just graduated college into debt. There's basically zero chance I'll ever make enough money to support a family or to start a business of my own. And the earth is literally being burned alive all around me at what seems to be a constant rate. So why go back to normal life at all? Before the pandemic, I was waking up before the sunrise just to get to work on time, and then getting back after dark. That sounds a little dramatic. That sounds like when your grandparents used to tell you they had to walk uphill both ways just to get to class. But honestly, that is what it was like for me a majority of the time. I found myself struggling to foster a social life out of my otherwise just plainly exhausted existence. And there's no need to actually worry about me. My life is actually pretty good compared to most people. I just really like to complain, so just bear with me here. I'm trying to make a point. Then, when people started getting sick, there was a gentle move, a transition, to get people who work at a desk to just go home and work from home instead. And I was totally psyched. Not having to commute to work is a total lifesaver. It saved me hours of daylight time that I could use to do things that I actually give a shit about again. And it made me realize a couple things. It made me realize just exactly how pointless my job is in the grand scheme of human life. And it made me realize how many people can efficiently work out of the office. So that's why I think it's important that we take a moment here to pause. As a people and as a species, we need to recognize the opportunity we have here to completely change the course of how we work. The societal momentum that has been dragging us all along has been halted for the first time in maybe 100 years, and we can make a change now that would benefit generations of underprivileged workers and could bring global economic success and wealth to communities who haven't seen anything resembling that in decades. The thesis of this video is working from home could save the world and all of us along with it. In the US, there are 11 cities across the country with more than 1 million people living in them. And there are just over 300 million people that live here in total. Traditionally, as a young professional, if you wanted to make a name for yourself, you needed to get a high-paying job, start your own business, or get involved in your community. Now for us, the people my age, these things all come with their own inherent risk. And basically, nothing is guaranteed from any decision you make, period. Now, there has been a comeback recently with new businesses starting in the US, But if you take a look at how our government is treating small businesses recently, it might make you think twice before putting in all of that effort and all of that risk when you might just bottom out and completely ruin your life financially anyway. My point here being is that people will often just follow a single route. They will take the chance to get a job because it requires the least amount of risk, and if you succeed and you land a job that pays you just enough to get by, you might get the chance to taste the sweet, sweet victory of social stability. You all know stability, right? You've heard of it, I'm sure. What I wouldn't give for another hit of that sweet social stability. I mean, sheesh. I mean, my future feels less stable than that flower box I built for my girlfriend the other day. You know that flower box that I built that you guys don't know about because you don't live in my head and I've never mentioned it before. Yeah, that one. That's the one I'm referring to. That's how unstable I am. Guys, it actually is stable. I'm sorry. I just wanted to show somebody because I was proud of it. So we end up flocking to bigger cities to get enough money and to buy the things that we need to survive. But that sucks. When I first got to Seattle, I was sharing a bedroom with my girlfriend because I couldn't afford rent. Then I started living with my parents because I couldn't afford rent. Then I could finally afford rent, and now I don't have any fucking money. They end up just burning all their money that they could be saving or using to create some sort of economic independence for themselves. And this is where we are. You know, we live in a society. But then the pandemic enters the chat. Things start to change. And all of a sudden, the people who need to live in the city so that they can work in the city, so that they can make enough money to enjoy their life, they no longer need to live in the city. They get to keep their jobs, and instead, they get to stay home with their families. For the first time in my whole life, I've been hearing about the money that people have been saving instead of just talking about work. You get to spend time on your hobbies instead of just on commuting. You get to spend time in your community and your neighborhood instead of just sitting in an office building. And this is just the start of it. At my company, when we switched to go completely remote, we received an email from the CEO and from HR informing us that we were not allowed to move away from the city that we worked in because it would complicate things for the company. But in my position, we had to ship equipment out to people so that they could continue to do their jobs. And I'll tell you this, I noticed anyone with the title of director or senior director or VP, it seems like they all just decided to ignore that and pick up and move to greener pastures, which is an opportunity that we could all have if we were able to work remote. And now that things are starting to get better, it seems like everyone is really eager to get workers back into the office. Now, if I was inclined to give companies the benefit of the doubt, I would say this. I understand that having your employees close by guarantees you the opportunity to make sure that they are fulfilling their job requirements appropriately. I also understand that there is some benefit to being able to meet in person so that you can coordinate in certain ways that maybe you don't have the same opportunity while working remotely. But those things can be achieved in a more flexible way. If there are people who need to be there in person to perform their job duties, sure, have them do that. But if there are people who can perform their job duties efficiently remotely, I don't see a good reason to force them back into the office. Forcing people back into work is not an attempt to get things back to normal. It is a power grab for control over the workforce. The company you work for does not care about your well-being. They just want your labor as cheap as possible. And making you go back into work is just an attempt to get us all to bow down and go back to the status quo. The momentum has been slowed for the first time in my life, and there is room for us to pivot in how we work. And if I'm being totally honest, working remote is a compromise. So just try for a little longer. And if you can, lean in. There are a few moments for every generation where you can create actual real change, and I think this is one of our moments. If you are able to fight in any way you can to secure a better working condition for yourself, please fight. Don't be afraid. You're not alone. In fact, you have way more support than I think you could possibly imagine. And most importantly, just try to keep your head up. You can do it. Thank you for watching.